Hello and a very warm welcome to all. You're watching Hindustan Times and my name is Aisha Varma. The war in Iran has overshadowed global politics throughout the past few months. Meanwhile, Russia's war in Ukraine is ongoing and it's taking center stage at a G7 meeting hosted by France. Lars Halter is with DW and joins me from Berlin. Lars, what's the current mood like at the meeting?
Well, as is usually the case at these large summits, everyone is working very hard to put on their friendliest face. Everyone is very optimistic, very excited about moving the world into the right direction. But it is really hard to find anything backing up this kind of optimism. And now, what makes this summit really special is how Ukraine was technically top of the agenda, but how that was obviously derailed by US President Trump and is still somewhat mysterious peace deal with Iran. There are still no hard details. G7 leaders want to know more about the deal. They want to know more, especially about the future of the Strait of Hormuz. But Trump at the summit in the town of Evian by beautiful Lake Geneva, he didn't really let out anything other than his usual somewhat fuzzy description of great things happening and markets at record highs. So this already made for a somewhat awkward opening with lots of talk, but not much substance, all while it is impossible not to see how G7 leaders are looking to build new alliances. They invited Brazil, India, Kenya and South Korea to Evian for talks. They're even calling the initiative Forging New Partnerships. And it's clear that during the presidency of Donald Trump in the US, the alliance has been weakened and that everyone is looking for new impulses and a new direction.
With all the talk about Iran going on, will G7 leaders still prioritize Ukraine during the summit?
They do. They are talking about Ukraine, and they actually will continue to do so today. But it all wasn't easy, as evidenced again by US President Trump, who initially said that, and I quote, now that this is finished, we're going to be focusing on that, meaning switching from Iran to Ukraine. However, then later in the day, he did make it clear that Ukraine just isn't a priority for him at all, saying we have nothing to do with it. We just sell them weapons. All he offered is to bring back sanctions on Russian oil so as to financially weaken the aggressor. And stricter sanctions on oil and gas are indeed on the list of things G7 leaders have agreed on. Furthermore, they have promised to support Ukraine in aerial defense. But especially after Trump's comments, it very much sounds like the financial burden remains on the other countries. And they've also pledged to continue to support Ukraine with supplies of diesel fuel, natural gas, gasoline, especially if the war would extend into yet another winter. Now, that's obviously a scenario that nobody wants. So the G7, including the US, also said they want to push Russia towards negotiating and signing a peace treaty with Ukraine. However, there is no timetable for that, and it's entirely unclear how this will actually play in Russia.
Ukraine is also at the center of another debate, this time within the European Union. What can you tell us about that?
Indeed, the EU has officially restarted talks with Ukraine about that country officially joining the 27-nation bloc. Ukraine joining the EU has actually been applied for a while, but for the past 2 years, the initiative had been sidelined by Hungary. It's just now, after that country elected new leadership, that their blockade is off and talks are back on. Now, in this first real round of negotiations, they're talking about Ukraine's judicial system, the protection of fundamental values and security. So this is a generally well-structured process, and candidate countries must demonstrate that their legal systems and their border controls meet EU standards. After that, the EU and Ukraine will discuss further reforms, for instance, in the area of anti-corruption measures. After all, the bloc wants to ensure that all the members, including, of course, the new members, adhere to certain standards and that there will be an even playing field within the group. And I do say new members as a plural, by the way, as Moldova is also in discussions with the EU, those talks running parallel to Ukraine's talks.
All right, Lars, thank you so much for joining us and bringing us all of those details. With that, it's a wrap, but do stay tuned.